The desert wind howled through the battlefield. The sun, a merciless blaze overhead, reflected off the steel of a single raised sword. Silence fell for a heartbeat. Then, chaos. The sound of clashing metal, war cries ripping through the air, and in the midst of it all stood a warrior unlike any other. His presence alone was enough to turn the tide of battle. His enemies whispered his name in fear. His allies followed him with unwavering loyalty. Khalid ibn al-Walid. But how did he become the warrior who could never be defeated? How did he rise from the sands of Mecca to become the sword of Allah? This is his story. Long before he became a legend, Khalid was just a boy. But he was no ordinary child. Born into the powerful Makhzum clan of Quraysh, one of the ruling tribes of Mecca, Khalid was destined for greatness. His father, al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, was one of the wealthiest and most influential leaders in Arabia. He believed that strength, alongside wisdom, determined a man's worth, and from an early age, he ensured that Khalid understood this. Khalid's childhood was not one of comfort. While other children played in the shade, he was out in the scorching desert, learning how to survive in the harshest of conditions. He learned the arts of war alongside reading and writing. His training was intense. Days spent wrestling, perfecting his swordsmanship, and riding horses with unmatched speed through the dunes. By the time he was a teenager, Khalid had mastered combat skills that rivaled seasoned warriors. His strikes were precise, his endurance unmatched. The spirit of battle became part of him, and strategy became his instinct. Among the Quraysh, Khalid's name became synonymous with power. His family took great pride in him, seeing him as a future leader of the Makhzum clan. But it wasn't just his combat skills that made him stand out. It was his mind. Khalid didn't just fight, he strategized. He studied battles, understanding how the greatest warriors in history had won wars before him. His reputation grew. Whenever tensions arose between the clans of Mecca, Khalid's presence commanded respect, and his reputation as a skilled warrior grew. The people of Quraysh saw him as their ultimate weapon, a guardian of their city, an unbreakable shield against any threat. But there was something Khalid didn't see coming. A challenge unlike any he had faced before. A man with no sword, no army, yet his words alone were transforming the very foundations of Mecca. A man named Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Khalid watched as this new movement, Islam, spread rapidly across Mecca. Men he once fought alongside abandoned their old ways and pledged their loyalty to this prophet. He couldn't understand it. Why would warriors, men of honor, abandon their old ways for a message of faith? Khalid often heard the Quraysh elders warn about the growing influence of Muhammad. "This man is a threat to our traditions," they would say. Khalid clenched his fists. He had fought men, defeated the strongest warriors in Arabia. But how do you fight words? How do you crush an idea? It was in that moment that Khalid made a decision. He would not stand by and watch the Quraysh lose their power. If war was coming, he would be the one leading the charge. He sharpened his sword, prepared his armor, and vowed to defend his people at any cost. And soon, he would be given his chance. Because on the horizon, a battle was approaching. A battle that would etch Khalid's name into history forever. The Quraysh had gathered their forces, thousands of warriors, ready to face the Muslims. And among them, at the head of the cavalry, was Khalid ibn al-Walid. He had studied every strategy, every possible move the enemy could make. He knew the terrain. He knew the weaknesses. But, most importantly, he knew exactly when to strike. As the armies faced each other on the battlefield, Khalid's eyes locked onto his target. He had a plan, a move that would shift the course of the battle in an instant. The Muslim army had one exposed position, a moment of vulnerability that, if seized, could shift the tide of battle, and Khalid had just discovered it. But what was this critical moment? And how did Khalid's brilliance on the battlefield lead to one of the most pivotal moments in history? That is a story for the next episode.